I've been with my girlfriend for about 5 months. We were casual friends in college and only started dating after she graduated. She has what I'd call princess syndrome, though when I say that, I don't mean she's spoiled or entitled, because she isn't. It's just that her clothes seem to dominate her life. Almost daily, except when she's at work, she dresses like a fairy tale princess, with frilly skirts, lacy blouses, and the like. It suits her because she's very pretty and can pull off the look, so at first, I found it endearing. But then I noticed how much time she devotes to her outfits. She runs a blog that has a significant number of followers. She posts outfit pictures, links to clothing items, and spends at least a couple of hours a day on it. After that, she'll spend time sewing pieces for new outfits or for her Etsy shop. Whenever we go out, her unique style draws a lot of attention. People are like moths to a flame, they can't resist taking a second or even a third look. I've seen them stop in their tracks, nudge their friends, and point her out as if she were a celebrity. I've also caught people snapping pictures of her on their cell phones, which is extremely invasive. Once at a cafe, a guy at the next table pretended to be texting while clearly angling his phone to capture a photo of her lace blouse and flowing skirt. Another time, a group at the mall giggled and took selfies with her in the background. All this attention makes me uncomfortable. It feels like we're always on display and can't enjoy a private moment. I tried to talk to her about it. I asked her to tone it down a bit, and she took my request to mean just not wearing flower crowns and headbands when we're out together. It was a minor adjustment that didn't resolve the real issue. The core problem was that she still wore her elaborate outfits, and I didn't know how to convey that it wasn't about the accessories but the overall impression her clothing made on others. I've told her multiple times that I love her just the way she is, yet she seems to brush it off whenever I try to explain how much I appreciate her unique style and creativity and how it initially attracted me. I want her to understand that my concerns stem from love and care, not criticism. But whenever I bring it up, she smiles, thanks me, and changes the subject. It seems like she either doesn't fully grasp what I'm saying or chooses not to listen. I hoped that when she started her new job, her chosen career, she'd dress more conventionally, at least in a professional setting. I thought the new environment might prompt her to adapt to the office culture. Instead, her boss and coworkers embraced her style and regularly complimented her outfits. Now she's like the quirky, fashionable mascot of the office, which only strengthens her inclination to dress that way. While I'm glad she's found such a supportive workplace, I worry that people won't take her seriously or overlook her kindness and intelligence because they're too focused on her appearance. I'm afraid her clothes will overshadow her abilities and make it harder for her to be recognized for her hard work and talent. I know how brilliant and compassionate she is, but I'm concerned others might not see past the ruffles and lace. How can I discuss dressing more appropriately with her without hurting her feelings? I'm caught in a difficult position. I don't want to come across as controlling or unsupportive, yet I also want to shield her from potential judgment. I need to find a way to express my concern while still affirming my love for her uniqueness and my hope that she'll be seen for who she truly is. It's a tricky conversation, and I can think of ways to say part of what I want, but it doesn't work for the other part. She doesn't need all the frilly things. She'd look like a princess in simpler clothes too. Her natural beauty and grace truly shine through, not just because of the fancy outfits. I've told her she has an effortless charm that doesn't rely on layers of lace and ruffles. But despite my assurances, she persists in adorning herself with intricate details and fairy tale ensembles. In college, her style fit the creative, free-spirited atmosphere, and it was almost expected. But now she's a 23-year-old entering the professional world, where first impressions and appearances matter. I fear her whimsical wardrobe might not be seen as suitable for her age and stage of life. I feel her clothes conceal her intelligence and make her seem shallow. When people see her in these elaborate outfits, they might not bother to look deeper and assume she's only about fashion, overlooking her sharp mind. I know how intelligent and thoughtful she is, how she can engage in profound conversations and how much she cares about those around her. But I'm afraid others will miss out on these qualities because they're too fixated on her looks. It's frustrating because I see her potential and the wonderful person she is, yet I also recognize how society can be quick to judge based on appearance. I want her to find a balance that allows her true self to emerge without the distraction of overly ornate clothing. She says she doesn't care what people think of her, but she spends so much time on her blog, responding to comments and such. I doubt she truly doesn't care, given how much effort she puts into curating it, taking photos, and interacting with her followers. If she truly didn't mind others' opinions, would she invest so much energy into maintaining her online presence? It seems she thrives on the validation and admiration from her audience. She's even told me she loves being approached by little girls when she's all dressed up. When a child comes up to her wide-eyed and asks if she's a real princess, she beams with joy and often recounts these encounters with delight, describing how their faces light up and how she feels she's bringing magic into their lives. It's heartwarming, but it also makes me question whether part of her motivation for dressing this way is the attention and admiration, even if she won't admit it. Objectively, she's not dressed inappropriately. She's well-groomed, doesn't show much skin, and her clothes are always neat and tidy. She takes great care to ensure everything is perfectly coordinated. But is it fitting to wear lace dresses and flower crowns to the supermarket? It's one thing to don such attire at a themed event or festival, but quite another in everyday situations like grocery shopping. It attracts unnecessary attention, with people staring, whispering, and even taking pictures. While she might relish the attention, it's overwhelming for me. I want to be able to engage in ordinary activities without feeling like we're putting on a show. I'm worried this constant spotlight could impact her in ways she doesn't realize. It's not just about the looks and comments, it's about fitting in, being taken seriously, and dodging the judgments that come with standing out. There have been so many developments. I hadn't planned on updating, but things changed. After my last post, I realized I needed to be more supportive while also communicating about how she could dress on certain occasions so we'd both be comfortable. But I never got the chance to talk to her about it last week. She called and asked to come over to my apartment after work. When she arrived, I offered to cook dinner, but she said she couldn't stay and we needed to talk. I jokingly asked if she was breaking up with me, and she looked really guilty. You can probably guess where this is headed. She called and wanted to come over after work. Her voice sounded a bit off, not as cheery as usual, but I didn't pay much attention at the time. When she got there, she looked as beautiful as ever in one of her signature outfits, a soft pink lace blouse and a flowing floral skirt. But there was a solemnity in her eyes that made my stomach churn. Uncomfortably, I offered to make dinner, hoping to lighten the mood and perhaps salvage the evening. She usually enjoys my cooking, and I thought a nice meal might ease whatever was on her mind. But she said she couldn't stay and that we had to talk. The way she said it was with a quiet firmness that made my heart sink. Trying to ease the tension, I jokingly asked if she was breaking up with me, forcing a laugh as I expected her to smile and assure me it was nothing serious. Instead, she looked really solemn, her eyes dropping to the floor. She bit her lip, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her skirt. At that moment, I knew where this was headed, even though I didn't want to believe it. She took a deep breath and began to explain. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke about how we were at different stages in our lives and had different aspirations for the future. She said she'd been thinking about it for a while and that it hadn't been an easy decision for her. I mostly listened, too stunned to say much. But as she talked, I found myself agreeing with her points, despite the lump in my throat. It was a fairly amicable breakup, though I felt blindsided by it. We both acknowledged that we cared deeply for each other but needed to be honest about our differences. We agreed to remain friends, although at that moment, the idea of friendship felt like a meager consolation for what we were losing. I've never been dumped before, and it's truly awful. The weight of that conversation lingered in the air as she walked away, leaving me standing in the silence of my apartment, feeling even more desolate. There were also issues with the whole social media situation after the breakup. I wanted a way to stay in touch with her, but as soon as she changed her relationship status, all these alternative-looking guys started liking her posts and commenting on her pictures. I doubt she even notices them, but it still stings that my ex is attracting so much attention. My friend wants to set me up on a date, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea. I'm still reeling from the breakup and not certain if I'm ready to venture back into the dating world. The thought of starting over feels overwhelming on one hand. While I appreciate my friend's efforts to help me move on the other hand, I'm still processing everything that happened. I understand some of the reasons for the breakup. Mainly, I wanted to move out of town once my lease was up, and I hoped she'd move in with me. I had dreams of living somewhere quieter, perhaps closer to nature, where life felt more serene. I imagined us building a life together away from the noise and chaos of the city. I was worried about the long distance, knowing how tough it could be on a relationship. I thought if she moved in with me, we could avoid that and grow closer, but she didn't want to leave the city. She loves its energy, the endless activities, and the opportunities it offers for her career and her blog. The city is part of her identity, and she couldn't envision herself thriving anywhere else. I understood how much the city meant to her, how it inspired her creativity and connected her to a community that appreciated her unique style. I grasped her point, yet it still hurt. Our visions for the future were so disparate that this fundamental difference in our goals was something we couldn't reconcile. It wasn't just about where we lived but how we saw our lives unfolding. She saw herself living in the bustling heart of the city, while I yearned for a slower pace in a quieter environment. It became evident that our paths had diverged, and no amount of compromise could bridge the gap. She mentioned something about me being controlling, but I don't think that was the case at all. It pained me to hear her say that because, in my heart, I know all I truly wanted was to safeguard her from any potential harm. I've always been deeply concerned about how others might perceive her and the potential judgments they might make based solely on her appearance. My intentions were never to control her or dictate how she should live her life. I fell in love with her because of her unique style and vibrant personality. Given the way people reacted to her, with the stares, the whispers, and the surreptitious photos, I grew worried about her well-being. I feared that this constant attention could lead to unwanted consequences, ranging from simple misunderstandings to more serious risks. It wasn't about changing who she was but ensuring she was safe and respected. I didn't want anyone to look down on her for any reason. While her style was beautiful and distinctive, I worried that it could sometimes overshadow her intelligence, kindness, and all the other qualities that made her so special. I just wanted her to be seen and appreciated for who she truly was, not just for how she dressed. I believed that if she toned down her outfits a bit, it would help others see past the ruffles and lace to the remarkable person beneath. My suggestions were meant to protect her from potential prejudice and ensure she received the respect she deserved. Update 2. I was going through an old email and stumbled upon this account again. I was surprised that I could still log in, and even more astonished by the number of people who had reached out to me. Messages of support, advice, and shared experiences filled my inbox. It was touching and overwhelming to see how many people had empathized with my story and taken the time to respond. It's a bit embarrassing to relive this breakup from almost 10 years ago. Reading my old posts and the raw emotions I poured into them brought back memories I'd long since buried. I could almost feel the sting of the heartbreak and the confusion that ensued, but now, with the passage of time, I can see things more clearly. I realize it wasn't meant to be, and I think I was more affected by being dumped than by the actual loss of the relationship at the time. It felt like the end of the world back then. It was the first time I'd been dumped, and my ego took a significant blow. The shock and pain were intense, and I struggled to make sense of it all. Looking back, however, I understand that our paths were always meant to diverge. We had fundamental differences in our lives, goals, and values that would have pulled us apart even if we'd stayed together longer. What I perceived as a deep loss was more about the bruising of my pride and the fear of an unknown future than the relationship itself. While the relationship was meaningful, it wasn't the perfect match I'd convinced myself it was. We cared for each other, but ultimately, we were incompatible in ways that mattered. It's clear to me now that the breakup was a necessary step for both of us to find our right paths. Looking back on my life, I can see how much I've grown since then. I'm 33 and married to a wonderful woman who is 31. We've been married for 4 years, and I couldn't be happier with how our life together has turned out. She's amazing, kind, thoughtful, and has a zest for life that's truly infectious. One of the biggest lessons from my previous relationship was the importance of supporting my significant other's hobbies and passions, which is something I've wholeheartedly embraced. In my marriage, my wife loves running and baking, 2 hobbies that bring her joy and fulfillment. She's an avid runner who participates in local marathons and enjoys the thrill of pushing herself. Her early morning runs have become a cherished part of her routine, and I admire her dedication and discipline. On weekends, our kitchen transforms into a baking haven where she experiments with new recipes and fills our home with the delightful aroma of freshly baked goods. Her passion for baking has become a source of happiness for our family and friends, who eagerly await her latest creations. We also have a daughter who will be 3 this year. She's the light of our lives, and watching her grow has been an incredible journey as a father. I want her to be free to express herself however she wishes, as long as it's safe, of course. Whether she wants to dress up like a princess, become an astronaut, or anything in between, I want her to feel supported and loved in her choices and be encouraged to explore her interests and express her individuality, which is something I deeply cherish and would do anything for. My wife and daughter mean the world to me, and their happiness is my top priority. I've learned to be more patient, understanding, and supportive, qualities that have strengthened our bond as a family. The lessons from my past have made me a better partner and parent, and I strive to create a loving environment where we all feel valued and cared for. By supporting my wife's passions and encouraging our daughter's creativity, we've grown closer as a family. It's a dynamic and joyful household, filled with love, laughter, and the occasional baking session. I'm grateful for the journey that has brought me here and for the beautiful family that I'm lucky enough to call my own. I'm friends with my ex on social media. We don't communicate much, but we do like each other's posts. She's married to another woman who also dresses differently now. Not as frilly as she used to, but still rather unique. Her pictures make her look like she stepped out of Green Gables. They seem very happy together on their farm. What do you think of this story? Please leave a comment below to let me know.